co-workers of our fallen first responders. Their pain and sadness is a daily burden, and we ask that you give them some measure of relief by lifting their spirits to your loving arms. Amen.
You may be seated. I'd like to welcome you again and thank you all very much for coming. We certainly appreciate everyone's time and attendance and resources you spend to come here today and honor our EMS providers who have lost their lives in the line of duty. My name is Doug Gerritsen, and I have the privilege and honor of serving as the chair of the Pennsylvania EMS Providers Foundation. And today's event is sponsored by the foundation as well as by the Bureau of Emergency Medical Services. As you may notice, I'm in cycling attire. I would like to acknowledge the nearly 50 cyclists and support staff who participated in our 8th annual Pennsylvania EMS Memorial Bike Ride. We pedaled our way from Cottage Ambulance Service in Carbondale, where they had experienced a line of duty death a few years ago, to end through Saturday, to end here today for the memorial service in our capital. We ride and participate in honor of our EMS brothers and sisters who lost their lives in the line of duty. In addition to our speakers who are with us today, there are several legislators and guests who are here to honor, remember, and participate during our memorial service. Representative Justin Fleming, Representative Michael Stender, Representative Paul Taker. Thank you. Also like to acknowledge several staff members that are here today. Joan Bradbury, Jeff Kavanaugh, Sean Harris, Mike Hillman, Sandy Mutzabaugh, here for Representative Arvind Venkat, Connor O'Leary, and Nate Silcox. Dr. Deborah Bogan is the Acting Secretary of Health. Prior to joining the Commonwealth, Dr. Bogan was the Director of the Allegheny County Department of Health, where her and her staff stayed on top of the pandemic and provided consistent, measured, and common sense information to the public while working closely with many stakeholders in the county. Prior to this appointment, Dr. Bogan was a member of the Pittsburgh Regional Medical and Research Community for more than 2 decades. She held a primary academic appointment as a professor of pediatrics at the University of Pittsburgh and secondary appointments in psychiatry and clinical and translational science. Dr. Bogan earned her medical degree from the University of Colorado School of Medicine and completed both her pediatric residency and academic pediatric fellowships at Johns Hopkins Hospital. She dedicated her career as a pediatrician to caring for the children and their families impacted by social inequities. Dr. Bogan, please.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Gerritsen. Really, truly, it's an honor to be here with all of you today. As I was introduced, I'm the Acting Secretary of Health. The emergency medical services providers across the Commonwealth provide vital care to our communities 24/7, 365. When you or I call 911 for emergency medical care, we expect EMS to be there to help, and quickly. Last year, when I was driving home from work, I saw a person who appeared confused and disoriented on the side of the highway. Concerned, I called 911, assured that EMS would be there to check on that person and to provide the care that was needed. EMS providers sacrifice holidays, weekends, and special events with family and friends to be there whenever we need them. The range of scenarios to which they respond is daunting, so they adapt to what's needed in the moment. They respond to people of all ages, people with broken bones, people experiencing heart attacks, asthma attacks, strokes, and so much more. They also respond to major emergencies like the East Palestine train derailment, the chocolate factory explosion in Reading, and the I-95 collapse. Regardless of the situation, EMS providers are there, ready and willing to respond and to serve. We saw this heroism 22 years ago on September 11, 2001, when countless first responders sprang into action to help people in the unprecedented tragedies experienced in New York City, Washington, D.C., and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Lives were saved that day, but many were lost. And just like on that faithful day, EMS providers know that as they start every shift, there is a risk of making the ultimate sacrifice. In the past year, 7 of Pennsylvania's EMS providers gave their lives for their communities. Today, we honor and commemorate the EMS providers who lost their lives in the line of duty. The willingness to help a stranger, no matter the cost, is the hallmark of first responders. To the families and friends of the fallen EMS providers, my heart goes out to you all. Thank you, and may their memory be a blessing. Just as we honor them today by keeping their memory alive, we owe it to them to pledge our support for EMS providers in every community. I know the EMS system is facing many challenges. The Department of Health is committed to working with the legislature, state and local governments, healthcare, and the EMS community to support the people who provide these critical public health services. Governor Shapiro made a $20.7 million investment with his 2023-24 budget to increase mileage rates for ambulance services, ensuring that EMS workers and their first responders are properly reimbursed for the critical care they provide every day. EMS providers are always there, behind the scenes, supporting public health, and the Shapiro administration is here to support them. So today, on September 11th, we recognize, honor, and thank the 1,223 EMS agencies in the Commonwealth and the nearly 26,000 certified individuals actively working in many emergency response roles across the Commonwealth. These brave Pennsylvanians are all essential to keeping our families, friends, and communities safe and healthy every day. So today we honor their work and their dedication and remember each of them as individuals, and we thank them and their families. Thank you for being here today, for allowing me to join this special event, and for your commitment to keeping Pennsylvania safe. Would you like me to introduce the next? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Secretary Logan. Doug Mastriano is a combat veteran and the son of a career U.S. Navy man. Doug was commissioned in the United States Army in 1986 and served on the Iron Curtain with the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment in Germany. He witnessed the end of the Cold War and thereafter deployed to Iraq. He was there for Operation Desert Storm in 1991 to liberate Kuwait. He then went on to serve in Washington, D.C. with the 3rd Infantry Division and U.S. Army Europe. After 9/11, Mastriano was the lead planner for the operation to invade Iraq via Turkey. He served 4 years with NATO and deployed 3 times to Afghanistan, where he was director of NATO's Joint Intelligence Center. He completed his career as a professor of the U.S. Army War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, retiring after 30 years of active duty with the rank of colonel. Mastriano has a Doctor of History, 4 master's degrees, published 30 articles on strategic and historic topics, and is the author of 3 books. Mastriano was elected to serve as senator for Pennsylvania's 33rd district in May of 2019, which includes all of Adams County. most of Franklin County and parts of Cumberland and York counties. Mastriano has a 30-year history of experience building teams to get the job done. He dedicated his life to freedom, defending our families, and serving the people of this great land. Senator.
It's an honor to be here with you. There's something special between the military and fire and EMS. There's a poignant picture that somebody painted that has a fireman on the top of the ruins of the World Trade Center handing the flag over to a soldier. We have this connection. In John chapter 15, verse 13, we're told by Jesus, greater love has no one than this, but to lay down his life for his friend. That personifies the warrior ethos, but as well as the ethos of those of you who serve our community as fire, EMS, and police. You're always there for complete strangers, to reach out with a helping hand in people's time of need, to running into the jaws of flames and danger, as so many did on that tragic day in 2001. If you look down the list here, of course, on 9/11, 2,977 innocent victims across New York, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C. If you think about that figure, 343 were fire department folks running into the buildings, knowing that potentially the buildings are going to fall in around them, but going in there and saving lives. And they saved lives. So I heard so many testimonies of people trapped in the buildings and let out by the same firemen that would be later killed when the building collapsed on them. You guys are heroes in my book. As a lifelong soldier, as somebody who's dedicated his life to upholding our way of life and defending our country, I have great awe and respect for each of you. It's a thankless job oftentimes. You miss family events, you lose friends on the side of highways or in tragedies. You see some of the worst scenarios out there in the midst of crisis and disaster and accidents, and you're there professionally trying to help, trying to comfort loved ones. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. So 2,977 victims on this day in 2001, 343 Fire Department of New York members killed, 23 police officers in New York killed, 30 Pennsylvanians died on that day in 2001. It led to our war in Afghanistan where 3,502 lost their lives, 2,401 of which were Americans, and 1,041 coalition and NATO allied brothers and sisters, which I served with. And of all those figures, 90 Pennsylvanians. Pennsylvania is always there. You're always there. Pennsylvania, the seat of the nation. The words of William Penn are inscribed above our heads here that he prophesied. After being imprisoned 3 times for his faith, not having the right political beliefs, he prophesied that we would become the seat of the nation. And we are the seat of the nation. Philadelphia, where the Constitution was signed, where independence was declared. And you are the face and legacy of that great promise from William Penn. Growing across those 2.5 centuries, you're the legacy to the generations that lay ahead. You're the connection to a better and brighter future. It's you that's holding back the darkness in the dark and trying times. We're here to honor so many of our brothers and sisters that lost their lives in the line of duty. 77 EMS providers, you'll hear each of their special names shortly. We're here to remember them and their sacrifice and commitment. Oftentimes on thankless jobs, on Christmas and holidays, missing family events, missing Halloween, I mean just on, the sacrifice you make it does my heart well to know you. It's an honor to serve alongside you. That's why as the chair of the Emergency Preparedness and Veterans Affairs Committee, we're moving legislation to try to make things better for you. We passed the move over, slow down, move over law. We have the blue light law. So tow truck operators put blue lights in the back of their trucks. It does matter. It does save a life here and there. We don't want to have any more tragedies like young Tyler on the side of the road a couple of years ago, losing his life and never meeting his unborn daughter. We want to do things to make life better for each of you. So I'm praying God's blessing over each of you and your family, that you'll be kept safe on the side of the roads and in the buildings and other catastrophes that you're facing, and that God will continue to bless and direct you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Senator Mastriano. First elected to office in 2018, Senator Katie Muth is a passionate advocate for change. Grounded in the strong values of hard work, dedication, and commitment to helping others, Senator Muth is determined to be a champion for hardworking Pennsylvanians. Born and raised in Western Pennsylvania, Senator Muth's background and experience instilled a fervor for citizen activism and service. She was educated in Penn State, where she earned a bachelor's degree in athletic training and obtained her master's degree at A.T. Still University of Health and Sciences in Mesa, Arizona. In November 2022, Senator Muth was elected her second term, representing the 44th Senatorial District, which includes parts of Chester, Montgomery, and Berks County. She was also elected to Senate Democratic leadership and serves as the chair of the Senate Democratic Policy Committee. Senator Muth also serves as the minority chair of the Senate Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee. As a member of the legislature, Senator Muth has worked tirelessly to ensure that all needs of all Pennsylvania families are met. She is focused on ensuring our veterans have access to programs and services they deserve, and on helping those struggling to find affordable health care, ensuring equal pay for equal work, promoting a livable wage and family medical leave. Senator.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you to the Ambulance Association of Pennsylvania for hosting today's memorial service and Ride to Remember and honor those first responders who died in the line of duty, serving our communities and protecting Pennsylvania families. Today is a especially important day of remembrance as we celebrate or honor the anniversary of the September 11th terrorist attacks that claimed the lives of nearly 3,000 people, including EMS providers, hundreds of firefighters, and countless more who have succumbed to 9/11 related illnesses and diseases from their time working at Ground Zero. EMTs, paramedics, and others who serve in the emergency medical services role play an imperative, vital component in our communities, and they're there to help provide life-saving care when we need them most. You're there every time we call. You show up for some of the most obscure, but yet some of the most important instances in people's lives. Not many are like you, is that you show up and you treat everyone that you come across with the same level of care and respect as you would like to be treated, regardless of who they are and where they come from, regardless of their socioeconomic class, regardless of whether or not you know them or not, you treat them like they're your family. And as much as you all help us, it's time for the legislature to stand up and support our EMS providers beyond press conferences, photo ops, and actually put money into these programs, because every single one of us, whether you ever have to call 911 in your life and utilize EMS services, we all want those services available. We cannot survive without you. So to not fund you and rely on grants every single year that you have to sign up for things and fill out paperwork is just, it's probably one of the most frustrating parts of serving the legislature, knowing something so nonpartisan is just neglected. We know that emergency medical services are only first responders that most Pennsylvanians don't pay forward until they call 911. But we want you there even when we don't think we need you there. I worked as an athletic trainer and I would often have EMS in the end zone at football games, and eternally grateful for when we had that coverage working at the high school level. And certainly it was always there in the Division I and when I was an intern in the NFL. But knowing that you were there on the sideline waiting, and I often would have coaches who didn't want to pay athletic trainers to cover youth sports, and they'd say, "Oh, you're just sitting here. You're not really busy today." And I'm like, if I'm not busy, that's a good thing, right? And you can all relate to that feeling of, we're right here and we're not busy, and that is a good thing. For years, EMS agencies have been generating less revenue than they need to operate each year. Unlike other first responders, they rely entirely on ambulance reimbursements, donations, and other creative ways to raise money. And that is just not a sustainable way to survive. That's not a sustainable way of funding that guarantees each EMS entity has what they need to operate and have staff that are living healthy lives and not overworked and trying to make ends meet constantly. This funding shortfall has led several EMS agencies to close, and 3 in Pennsylvania closing in the last 3 months. So I know it's always nice to have all the nice things in where you live in your community, but if you ever travel around the state of Pennsylvania, and I had this experience myself earlier this year, where a Somerset County ambulance had to come and get me. And I don't live in Somerset County, I don't represent Somerset County, but I sure as hell was eternally grateful that they were there within 4 minutes. And they didn't care where I was from, they didn't care who I was, they just were there to do their job and make sure that I was okay. And so I say that, and if your EMS company is okay where you live locally, or maybe you don't even know and you should ask about that, we want every county in this Commonwealth to have the resources they need, that if someone should need EMS services, that they're there in a timely manner. We already have a struggle enough on getting people to healthcare providers and transporting them because of the distances, especially in rural parts of the state, to where hospitals are located. But we can at least make sure that we have enough EMS staff and transporters to get people to where they need to be in time to save their lives, potentially. The funding shortfall, again, is leaving this ripple effect, and it's overburdening other regional providers. We know that insurance reimbursement does not pay you what you are worth, and that has to change. And just down the hall later this afternoon, we are going to have a Senate Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee meeting, hosting a public hearing on the 911 reauthorization and funding shortfall. This continues to be a top priority of some of us in the legislature, and I'm hopeful that we can finally act on this critically important public safety issue later this month when we return to session. Whether it's by passing House Bill 1304 or Senate Bill 807, which is my companion legislation to the House bill. Under current Pennsylvania law, every telephone user pays a 911 surcharge, including a flat rate fee of $1.65 on each wireless line to help fund our 911 telecommunication services. And why should we care about that? Because all of the EMS providers that we rely on need a reliable 911 system. Learning the intricacies, I'll call them, of 67 county 911 platforms and the lack of uniformity, it's amazing that we're able to do what we do now even. And as that transition comes together to hopefully streamline things across all counties, we need to make sure that system is funded so our EMS providers know where to go. Additional funding is needed to continue properly dispatching these calls, as well as fully funding programming and resources for all of our brave EMS providers who turn people's fear into hope after some of the hardest days and most scary moments of their life. I want to say thank you to all of you again for the service that you provide to our community, and thank you for including me today, and it's an honor to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Mark Gillen is the Republican chair of the House Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee.
I hope you enjoyed my extensive bio. Shared. And it is appropriate because it's not about me. They have us on a little bit of a leash, 5 minutes, which is hardly enough time for a politician to speak and to embellish his own record. Let me simply say this to the group assembled here today. Thank you. Because I come here not just as a legislator, but maybe more importantly, as a dad. I have 5 daughters. Usually that evokes some ooh and ah. It's taught me a great deal of patience, and I've experienced tremendous love from them. I have a wonderful wife. The reason I mention my daughters is 2 of them have had helicopter rides, medical helicopter rides. It's recently as this year. I've had to call an ambulance to the house, and if I'm struggling in my speech a little bit, I have stitching in my mouth, and I spent the weekend in the hospital. So, nothing communicable, don't get nervous here. I have a great personal debt of gratitude, but if I could speak past this distinguished assembled medical community for just a moment. This morning in front of the Berks Military History Museum in Newton Borough, not far from where I live, we had a ceremony. And appropriately, we had our 9/11 steel there. There was an etched granite stone, and we had the Patriotic Order Sons of America there managing the ceremony as well. And it was perfectly appropriate that we had speeches just like we did here, but let me challenge the greater community beyond the speeches, the memorials, the bell ringing, that rather than mere granite, we have etched in our hearts in perpetuity what happened 9/11. That we have forever etched in our minds and our hearts the names and the pictures of those that went down. There were a lot of eloquent presentations on statistics. One that stands out in my mind, there's 1,100 families out there that have never recovered the remains. Never recovered the remains of those that were lost in 9/11. It is our responsibility as a greater community to carry that torch and to wear that mantle and to be absolutely certain, not one day of the year, but 365 days of the year, that they are not forgotten. Back in the Soldiers' Grove at the far end, there's slabs of granite. They appear to be unremarkable because there's only one word sprinkled throughout those slabs of granite. But it's an important word, and that word is remember. We have not only a responsibility to remember, but we have a call to action to fill the ranks of those that have fallen. Perhaps it was best embodied in a constituent that I met 12 years ago, and her name is Christine Dialectos. Christine had a button on and had a picture. It appeared to be World War II era, and there was an aviator holding a baby. And as I engaged in conversation with her, I said, Christine, who are these people? She said, the baby is me. The aviator is my oldest brother, whose B-29 bomber went down in the South Pacific. And that's the only picture that I have of him. You know, in that household, duty and honor and country and service abide. To Pennsylvanians, we need to stand tall. We need to provide the finances. We need to be shoulder to shoulder with our first responders. And when you make that 911 call, you expect a response, just like I did a couple months ago when my daughter went down with illness. Out in front of the Berks Military History Museum, I don't know when it was left there or who put it there. Occasionally, on that piece of steel, we'll have individuals drop coins and other articles and light candles. There was that verse from John chapter 15, verse 13. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. I was an emergency medical technician for 30 years. I was a correctional officer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and a university police officer. at a college out of state. But I've never tasted what many of you have tasted. I've never tasted that bittersweet, not able to recover the remains of a loved one. I would challenge the greater community to hearken to the example of not only those that have fallen, but hearken to the example of those that need the ranks filled as we're struggling with personnel needs in emergency medical services. We're struggling with law enforcement needs, over 1,000 spots available in Philadelphia. I close with this. I drove to Harrisonburg, Virginia yesterday evening, and I met my daughter. She's in college in South Carolina. We did a 50-yard line lunch at Cracker Barrel, and she told me what was going on in her life as a member of the ROTC. She talked about an upcoming event. As I was driving back home, I thought about the prospect of my own daughter, who's a sophomore in college, rising to junior actually now. Thought about the prospect of her standing in the gap, standing in the foxhole, being in a position of harm's way. And I'm so proud that she's willing to do that and to follow in the footsteps of my 18-year-old dad at the time, the outbreak of the Second World War, where duty called and honor demanded and community insisted that he step up and end up in a machine gun turret and torpedo plane off the carrier USS Hancock. I'm so glad that my mother responded on the home front as a Rosie the Riveter. And you know what? You follow in those footsteps, and I would encourage the greater community to follow in your footsteps. God bless you.
Thank you, Representative Gill. In 1998, the United States Congress, through concurrent resolutions of the Senate and House of Representatives, designated that an EMS memorial service be held annually as the official EMS memorial service in the United States. The purpose of the National EMS Memorial Service is to honor those emergency medical services personnel who have died in the line of duty, and to recognize the ultimate sacrifice they have made for their fellow man. This is our 13th year holding a Pennsylvania EMS Memorial Service at the Capitol, where the names are all specific to our state. EMS does not have a national memorial, a garden, or a location designated to honor those who have served that we lost. At this point, we have a concept being done to create a moving memorial for EMS personnel in the Commonwealth. Please take a few moments later to learn more about that memorial from us. Today we honor the following Pennsylvania EMS providers who have lost their life in the line of duty in service to the residents of this Commonwealth. I'd now like to ask Brian Shaw, Deputy Director of EMS West, to assemble the readers. I'd like to invite Doug Wolfberg, founding partner of Page, Wolfberg & Worth, to the podium.
Thank you. I am honored to be here on what is a solemn anniversary for our Commonwealth and our nation to offer some brief reflections on this occasion, which is a solemn celebration. It's solemn because of the purpose for which we gather today, but it is a celebration of the remarkable lives of service led by those we are here to honor. Today I want to share with you some words written in 1864 by Abraham Lincoln to Mrs. Lydia Bixby. She was the mother of 5 soldiers who lost their lives in service to their country. President Lincoln wrote, "I feel how weak and fruitless must be any word of mine which should attempt to beguile you from the grief of a loss so overwhelming. But I cannot refrain from tendering you the consolation that may be found in the thanks of the Republic they died to serve. I pray that our Heavenly Father may assuage the anguish of your bereavement and leave you only the cherished memory of the loved and lost, and the solemn pride that must be yours to have laid so costly a sacrifice upon the altar of freedom." President Lincoln knew that his words could not lessen a mother's anguish, nor do we pretend that any words of ours can diminish the grief of the survivors of these fallen. But we offer these words from the entire EMS community with the consolation of gratitude. EMS can be thankless. In their lifetimes, the EMS professionals whom we honor might have only rarely or fleetingly received the thanks of those they served. But the gratitude of humanity is undying. Our profession embraces them with a heartfelt thank you for their service and their sacrifice. The work that EMS professionals perform is noble. It matters to the sick and injured. It matters to your communities. It matters to our Commonwealth. It matters to humankind. As a profession, we say Semper Memoria, which means always remember. This is our sacred obligation. Those who mourn the loss of these irreplaceable EMS heroes can take consolation in the solemn pride of which President Lincoln spoke. And if I may paraphrase Lincoln, the families and the friends of our departed EMS brothers and sisters can carry with them the solemn pride of having made such a costly sacrifice in the cause of public service. These survivors can be sustained by knowing that the earthly work of their loved ones involves such righteous service to others. Scripture says that he who saves a single life saves the entire world. I feel confident believing that none of the families or friends of these fallen would wish their grief upon anyone else. So imagine, if you would, the worlds that were saved because these heroes lived. Imagine the families who were spared the loss, the pain of the loss of their loved ones because of what these EMS professionals did in their lives. There is pain and loss, and when it simply refuses to ebb, we can remember the sorrow and suffering that these honored providers prevented. We are all mortal. When our time of judgment arrives, we can only hope to be judged with the same mercy that these honorees received, without a doubt, because of their lives of service and sacrifice. The names of these venerated servants are inscribed on the gates of eternity and forever registered in the EMS rolls of honor. Semper Memoriam, we will always remember. I'd like to challenge everyone here to think about how, in your own heads, in your own hearts, how each of you will remember and honor those who gave what Lincoln called the last full measure of devotion. Please rise. Gentlemen, please remove your head coverings.
Samantha Agins, Camp J.C. Stroudsburg. Ethan Amsbaugh, Priority Volunteer Response Ambulance, Mount Union. Robert Ashby, Christiana Ambulance, Gap. Brenda Bauer, City of Reading Fire, Reading. Andrew Beck, Kecksburg VFW Rescue Squad, Kecksburg. Brad Blackman, American Medical Response, Philadelphia, PA EMS Memorial Bike Rider. David J. Blockson, Wilkins Churchill, Rescue 1, Wilkins. Walter L. Bricker, Meadow Township Fire and Ambulance Company, Vanitsburg.
John Buckner, City of Scranton Fire Department, Ambulance, Scranton. Gilbert Burke, St. Mary's Ambulance Service, St. Mary's. Kevin Bundy, Mercy Fitzgerald EMS, Darby. Jeanette M. Christ, University Medevac, Lehigh Valley Hospital, Allentown. Kelly A. Conti, Critical Care Diversified Enterprises, West Mifflin. John Demkowski, Lackawanna Ambulance Service, Scranton. Klein DeWire, Susquehanna Health System EMS Department, Williamsport. Bruce H. Ditlow, St. Joseph Hospital, Lancaster.
Theodore Dubus, Veterans Ambulance Service, North Cambria. Douglas Zabinski, UPMC Pinnacle Health, Community Life Team York. Kevin Alpheson, Medic Rescue Ambulance Service, Beaver Falls. Jeremy Emmerich, Lehigh Valley Medevac. Donald J. Felker, Coolingdale Fire Company, number 1, Coolingdale. Dale Francis, Lifestar Ambulance Corps, Quakertown. William Frazier, Mountaintop Ambulance, Mountaintop. Michael Boz Garvin, 2nd Alarmist Association and Rescue Squad, Willow Grove.
Gregory S. Gelsinger, Tower Direct, Wyomissing. John M. Goodwin, Guthrie 1 Helicopter, Sierra. Thomas Gruen, Tunkhannock Community Ambulance Association, Tunkhannock. Richard A. Hartley, Derry Township Fire Police, Lewistown. Mark W. Hostler, Guthrie 1 Helicopter, Sierra. Ed Hayes, Cottage Rescue and EMS, Carbondale. Thomas Hicks, Citizens Volunteer Fire Company, York.
Wesley Hossiter, Black Tuscarora EMS, East Waterford. Robert W. Justice, St. Luke's Transport Service, Tannersville. Daniel E. Keller, Fayette EMS, Connellsville. Robert Kohler, Senior Northeastern Area EMS, York. Sean M. Kramer, Hamburg Ambulance Service, West Lawn, Hamburg. James S. Landis, University Medivac, Lehigh Valley Hospital, Allentown. John F. Legayco, Parksburg Ambulance Fire Company, Parksburg. Janice Keen Livingston, West End Ambulance, Johnstown.
Kevin McAtone, Bucks County Rescue Squad, Morrisville. Fred Mano, North Huntington EMS Rescue, Greensburg. Nelson Martin, Bethel Ambulance, Bethel. Herbert W. McKay, American Medical Response, Philadelphia. Daniel W. McIntosh, Ben Salem, EMS, Ben Salem. Jonathan Myers, East Pennsboro Ambulance, Enola. Harry R. Moore, City of Duquesne EMS, Duquesne. Paul Moyer, Yo Ambulance, York. Michael R. Murphy, Penn Star, Philadelphia. Barry John Nagel, Silver Spring Ambulance and Rescue Squad, New Kingston.
Deborah J. Knoll, Guthrie 1 Helicopter, Sayre. Larry Oberly, Alpha Fire Company, Community Ambulance, State College. Ken Prunty, Tri-County Ambulance, Monongalia. Elwood C. Queen Sr., Irona Ambulance Service, Irona. Robert Reeder, Crozier Keystone EMS, Upland. Patricia A. Rugabuno, Lehigh Valley Hospital, Allentown. David Sauter, Leona Ambulance Association, Leola.
Heinz Schultz, Emergicare Lifestar of Erie, Erie. William J. Sikora, Jr., Jeanette EMS, Jeanette. Richard Shelf, Jr., Swarthmore Fire and Protection Association, Swarthmore. Matthew C. Smelter, Ross Raver West, Newton Ambulance, Emergency Medical Services, Bell Vernon. Edward E. Silver, Hobbs Ambulance, Lareysville. William R. Spencer, CJ Systems Aviation Group, West Mifflin. Ethel M. Sparrows, Willow Street Ambulance Association, Willow Street.
Richard J. Stark, Thornhurst Volunteer Fire Rescue and Ambulance in Thornhurst. Daniel Sweeney, Philadelphia Fire Department, Philadelphia. Brian Tarabori, UPMC Wellsboro, Wellsboro. Nicholas A. Theophilus, Penhills EMS, Penhills. Joseph N. Wagner, Monroeville Fire Department, Monroeville. Robert Vetter, Mon Valley EMS, Monessen. John M. Watson, Moscow Volunteer Fire Department and Hose Company Ambulance, Moscow. Kevin L. Weatherlow, St. Joseph Hospital, Lancaster.
Craig Webb, University EMS, Daffin. Gregory Wenzel, First Aid and Safety Patrol, Lebanon. David A. Wilmer, Mount Carmel Area Rescue Squad, Mount Carmel. Robert H. Wood, Montrose Minutemen, Montrose. David Young, Central Juniata EMS, Juniata. Robert Bob E. Zerman, Pioneer Hose Company No. 1, Bravasonia. Doug Zima, North EMS, Elizabethtown.
We lost another EMS provider in recent months by the name of John England. Although not a line of duty death, John's service in support of all of Pennsylvania's EMS providers and the system we work in was wide-ranging. John can, in some ways, be considered amongst the pioneers of EMS Pennsylvania, starting his journey in Western Pennsylvania in the mid-1970s. But John's greatest impact came when he left his roots and accepted the leadership challenge, serving as Assistant Director of the Pennsylvania Department of Health Bureau of Emergency Medical Services. In his role, John met and worked for providers across the Commonwealth, helping to ensure standards, educational excellence, system design, and overall advocacy and support at all levels, including here in our capital, Harrisburg. John was kind, at times funny, compassionate, caring, knowledgeable, dedicated. We are grateful for his service and his leadership. He will be missed. Some of John's family are here today. We recognize their presence and convey our heartfelt sympathy for their and our collective loss. With a brief moment of silence in memory of John, we ring the memorial bell one more time. May you rest in peace. Please be seated. We read their names. We honored and remembered them. The list, while way too long, doesn't take into account the silent line of duty losses EMS experiences. Those lost to post-traumatic stress, and at times tragically suicide. John Becknell once described EMS as witnessing life without a filter. To my colleagues, he would say, the work you do is brutally honest. You meet your patients in unadulterated settings, where life begins, is lived, and all too often ends. The wounds you see are not yet bandaged, and the death you see is not yet shrouded. There is no pretense in the work you do. In closing, I'd like to call for a final moment of silence during this time, and I ask you that you wrap our suffering colleagues in a massive virtual hug and send forth our thoughts in prayers for their well-being. This brings our service to a close.